So the past outwards discussion is a really interesting kind of training exercise, although it's also a process for conversations that some teams choose to use. But it's a training exercise that we've done with teams and groups kind of all over the world. Mm-hmm. And what's fascinating is that when you take feedback, there's always kind of really familiar themes that come out, whichever team you're doing it with, where mm-hmm. people who are person C will often say there seemed to be less emotion in the retelling when B kind of retold the story, and although they got all the details in there, it was a lot more succinct,
Definitely.
kind of more ordered than when A tells it. They kind of go and it all kind of comes out in a bit of a mess.
A lot more snappy, bullet point type feedback that they observe.
And then people who were person B often say, "Oh, that was a bit stressful. It was actually quite nerve-wracking telling A's story mm-hmm. in front of A. I really mm-hmm. felt like I needed to get it right." Mm. And I think that's a good thing. It's kind of a privilege, isn't it, to hear people's stories, and
definitely
you do want to make sure that you have properly understood and that
mm-hmm.
that you get it. And then people who are person A will kind of, if person B kind of really understood it, they find that quite validating and go, mm-hmm. "Oh, I feel a bit better that, B and C seem to understand where I was coming from." Mm-hmm. But that if there's an A where B got something a bit wrong, it can be a really jarring experience, mm-hmm. which is kind of just a good lesson on how being mentalised accurately can be very validating and a good feeling, but feeling misunderstood just kind of can really...
Yeah. They often feel about the urge to want to jump in and so forth, and therefore they may miss other parts that's being said because they're stuck on that part that the other person's got wrong. Mm. But on the other hand, they can say how quite soothing it feels to be properly reflected and understood.
And then A will often say, "Oh, in kind of sitting back and just being an observer and listening to my story, I kind of saw it in a different way, particularly with that emotion removed in the retelling, that I kind of, I saw it from the outside." Mm. So we've got, as you know, an analogy to kind of describe this of the ripples in the pond. Yeah. So if you've just thrown a pebble into a pond, you kind of get splashes and everything in the middle where it's hit, and that's kind of chaos. Mm. But as you step back from that, it kind of resolves into a predictable pattern. Yeah. So it's like if you're person A, if you're the worker in the centre of a really tricky situation, it's like you're in the middle and you can't see the wood for the trees. Mm. There's lots of emotion and stress. You can't mentalise, basically. No. But that if you're person B or even person C, you're kind of right on the edge of the bank and you can kind of look in and take a different perspective on the thing. And we reckon that's kind of what goes on in the past outwards discussion, is it just kind of helps A to kind of step out from the centre where it's kind of stressful and it's hard to think straight and be able to look at their dilemma from the outside.
Definitely. It reminds me of office conversations when you have colleagues who, one's coming from a situation, telling another person, but you maybe sit at another desk and you're hearing it. So there's the kind of the A, B and C format in a working situation where you may think, hold on, I'm seeing this, and you might just interject as a part of helping your colleagues.
Yeah. So we've got in AMBIT a particular process to try and in a snappier way make use of this phenomenon of kind of being able to look at things from the outside through the minds of a colleague, that's called thinking together. So we'll have some separate videos talking about that.
Brilliant.